Good morning, members, Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Good morning and welcome to Tuesday, July 29th, Board Caucus. And we will start this morning with Larry leading us into a retirement recognition.
Hey, good morning, Board Member Garrett, Board Member Holmes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. So one, thanks for the opportunity to speak to the caucus this morning and to the group that's here. If you can't notice, we got a pretty full room of E&E folks here. So if it gets a little noisy, we apologize up front. We'll call the cops. Monica, come on up here, please.
You have reached your destination.
So we're here to recognize Monica Taylor. So Board Member Garrett, I know you got a history in the South. You're used to cornerstone ceremonies at some of our churches and our facilities. And we have some in our small churches in the South called a cornerstone member. That's somebody that was there when the building was built and the cornerstone was laid. Monica isn't quite that, but she's definitely a cornerstone member. Monica has been with this team now for almost 28 years. We had Deputy Chief Lisa Rinke retire not too long ago, and her and Monica started on the same day. And, you know, you started out with the team putting information in the AS400, you know, on some of the servers and the mixologist licenses, worked your way in the office assistant. And I think there for the chief, they saw your potential. Monica is no stranger to hard work. On this team, we have been struggling to find all of the tasks that Monica does and covers between hiring. She's our hiring coordinator for a 200-person division, the budget point of contact for $52 million in budget. She manages a little bit over 100 vehicles with the team and has just recently seen the rotation of the fleet for the third time, the radio installed for the third time. And not to mention, I know the board has seen that we've had quite a significant turnover in hiring. Monica, I think in the last year has probably seen about 70 applicants come in. That is a long way from your first trip to the United States in 1977 to Butte, Montana. Monica's hometown is, you help me pronounce it, Haden, Germany. I'm gonna mess that up every time. But started working in 1997 in retail and came to the agency a little bit after that. And I think she has been a stalwart for this division ever since. I don't think there's enough we can say or enough we're going to be able to do to recognize the impact you've had. Nearly every officer who has started here in the last 15, 20 years started with you, started with a phone call from you and a congratulations, and you shepherded them all the way through from issuing gear, equipment, weapons, vehicles, making sure they got training or their training was verified. Even with me joining the team 6 months ago. I think the people in the room and the people in the building are going to definitely feel that presence when it's not there. You'll be missed, but definitely remember, fondly remember. I think the one thing I want to do, at least on camera, is make sure that we get you your retirement letter on camera, and then I'll let you talk a little bit, and then I think we're going to find another way to at least spend a little time with you today. So.
It's been a journey. It's been a long journey, but it also doesn't seem like it has been that long when you talk about 27 years. As you all know, I don't really mind going to work. I'm not that person that gets up in the morning and wants to turn around one more time. I'm ready to go. But once I explored retirement and Social Security and all that, I, for some reason, from one day to the other, got ready to say, okay, I have to cut the cord. I have learned a lot from leadership that has supervised me. I've learned a lot from my coworkers, even a lot from everybody in the building and also from my team. This is all a team effort. By the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you work with other divisions or if you work with just your team that you have, that you supervise. By the end of the day, we all are one big team. And it's been not only a fulfilling work ethic that everybody has. We also had a lot of fun on the side note. I tell a lot of times staff that comes on that this agency will work you hard, but we also know how to have fun. And the other thing that this agency really has always done a good job on is telling people that they're valued. And that I think has a big impact on anybody that starts. With that said, my knees are a little shaky right now. I thank you for the kind words, Chief, and thank you for having me. And I wish you all the best. And I miss all of them. This is my working family.
Thank you. And Monica, I just want to say congratulations. It was really amazing to hear everything that you've done there in the last 27 years. And I can really say, and I can tell Larry, she will be missed. But congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much, Holly. I appreciate it.
And Ollie, if I could just echo that, thank you so much, Monica. Your service is appreciated, and I can tell you're going to be missed for sure.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Up next is Kristen is going to give us a public health and cannabis community roundtable update.
Yes. Good morning, members Garrett and Holmes. It's fun to follow up a retirement recognition. Congratulations, Monica, and thank you for your service. You will definitely be missed across LCB. So jumping right in, I'm Kristen Haley, Public Health Education Liaison. I was technically invited today to talk about the most recent roundtable we hosted, like Ollie Garrett mentioned, with folks from the cannabis community, but I'd also like to brief you on the public health and prevention roundtable we hosted this spring too. Since my debriefing the board is part of a new process that we're just kicking off today, I thought I'd give you some bonus content. So Gretchen and I have scheduled me to give similar debriefs after all of our roundtables from now on. So please share any feedback with me about what you'd like to hear more or less about. And I've timed this so that we have enough time for questions at the end. But if you have questions as I go, feel free to jump in. I'll be watching for your hands. First, by way of context, this year we are doing roundtables with a new format. In the past, Mary Sagawa typically only did roundtables about quarterly and just with the public health and prevention community. But now, starting in 2025, we're hosting 2 roundtables for public health and prevention, 2 for the cannabis community, and then 1 combined later in the year. And that will be our first combined roundtable. However, we have had listening sessions and work groups between these 2 groups. But like I said, the roundtables have typically been separate. So on March 24th, Board Chair Jim Vollendroff and I co-hosted the Public Health and Prevention Roundtable. And we shared a brief overview of the high THC work groups that we convened in 2024. And we talked with attendees about their interest in potentially engaging in a similar work group style to address packaging and labeling. And I was able to gather names of volunteers for that work group, and I'll talk more about that shortly. Then Justin Nordhorn provided an update about the ongoing retail alcohol product placement rules, followed by Mark Webster's update from the 2025 legislative session. The research program had been slated to give a demonstration of the dashboards that they'd been working on and walk through recently completed research briefs, but to be honest, we ran out of time. So Dr. Sarah Oki gave just a really high-level overview instead. And then we'd also hoped to discuss Board Chair Vollendroff's strategic planning goals for 2025, but we also didn't really have time for that. Then on June 11th, member Ollie Garrett and I co-hosted our first cannabis community-only public health roundtable, which had about 30 attendees, which was a blend of LCB staff and folks from the community, or the cannabis community. We generated agenda ideas from participants at the top of the call and then did an informal voting process to prioritize the top topics to discuss in June. This also helped us determine topics for our October meeting that I'll be co-hosting with member Pete Holmes. We discussed the following topics in June: the desire to merge more spaces between public health and cannabis communities, the cannabis hospitality, consumption lounges, pop-ups conversation. And then we briefly touched on packaging and labeling in this group as well. One takeaway I'd like to share is how engaged participants were on these topics. We heard really great feedback and ideas throughout the conversations, and I was really pleased with the turnout and just the general direction of conversations. It made me excited for future roundtables with this group. On the topic of merging spaces with public health and the cannabis community, one point I want to highlight is that from the perspective of these participants, the separation between stakeholder groups is just confusing and seems unnecessary. And we hear that loud and clear. And I've had conversations with LCB leadership to find ways to compromise between the comfort, limitations, and needs of our public health and prevention partners with the valid requests of the cannabis community stakeholders. And then the conversation around cannabis hospitality, I thought was thought-provoking and featured a lot of dialogue about inequities for people in rental properties, the stigma associated with current cannabis policies, and the potential economic benefit that consumption lounges or maybe expanded use spaces could bring for the industry. Overall, a really interesting conversation. And then on the topic of packaging and labeling, there was interest from a number of participants to engage in future work groups. Given the earlier conversation that I mentioned, we also plan to host those as a combined space between public health and prevention and the cannabis community. So we agreed to pick up conversations back up in October with the cannabis hospitality conversation and then packaging and labeling. The next most prioritized topic that they generated was home grow. So if we have time, member homes, maybe we can bite off all of that and see how much we can chew. And then I thought you'd be interested to know the other topics that were raised and voted on, but only had like 1 or 2 votes. And that was how federal changes of institutions and funding are impacting public health and prevention priorities, ID card problems from a patient perspective, harm reduction benefits of cannabis use and legalization, and then hemp-derived THC that's being purchased online and in physical brick and mortar locations in Washington. So as a recap, just the next steps ahead of us for our roundtables. Board Chair Vollendroff and I will host the next Public Health and Prevention Roundtable in August. Then Member Holmes and I will host the cannabis community in October. We'll do our combined meeting again in November with Board Chair Vollendroff and I. And like I mentioned, I'm going to go back here after each of the roundtables to offer a similar debrief. Again, give me feedback if you have any, so that the board members who weren't in attendance can feel fully looped in. And then I hope to get the first packaging and labeling work group meeting scheduled for September, since kicking off something during summer is usually not very productive as it competes with time out of office for all of these different stakeholders. And again, those meetings will be a shared space between both sets of stakeholders, given the feedback we've received. And with that, I conclude my debrief. I open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Kristen. You were very thorough. And one of the things that we did hear, Pete, crystal clear from the industry was wanting that to bring public health and the community together in conversations instead of silo conversations. They were very clear and strong about them both being in the room together.
Yeah, and it seems to speak volumes about the high THC work groups that Chair Vollendroff and I hosted, that they seem to have been a great example of sharing space and having really constructive conversations. I think
Right.
it is a challenge. We're trying to balance both the needs from both sets of partners, and there are just some partners who can't come to the table if industry is present. So we don't want to inadvertently silence those partners. So I think it's going to be a balance to find spaces so there's enough availability of spaces that they can have shared opportunities to collaborate, but also keep some spaces separate so that public health still has a voice. We're going to try to find that balance.
Right.
I very much appreciated being able to listen to the entire roundtable as recorded, and found your synopsis to be quite accurate. I really, Kristen, look forward to our next October roundtable. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. No shortage to talk about. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. All righty. Now we will move on to Justin, giving us an update on the cannabis license distance measurements.
All right. Good morning, members. Garrett Holmes. Wanted to bring some attention to one of the rural projects that we are considering withdrawing. And that would be something that we'll be bringing to you at one of the upcoming board meetings. So we had been exploring ways of being proactive in looking at points of deregulation. We offered up a CR 101 for how we measure distances. When we first started, our first rule set was common path of travel. We shifted to direct line. And now when we're looking at what opportunities are there for some deregulation, we thought we would explore this particular issue. After we opened the CR 101 on June 4th, we received a number of comments. There were two individuals who expressed interest in continuing to explore this. We received 6 other comments, and some of them were from associations. One was the Washington Cannabis License Association, and the other one was the Association of Washington Cities. Both of them had very strong concerns, and we also heard from 2 independent cities who have really strong concerns around this particular issue. There's some, I think, misperception a little bit around what this would do. People are commenting that this is going to effectively eliminate buffers. That's not true. But people do feel like the current process that we have with the mapping and how that's laid out is very clear and straightforward to apply. We've had some internal, we've identified some internal impacts that would be around how we measure for both licensing and enforcement, and the resources to go out and pick a measurement for common path of travel. Some of the other comments that they thought it would bring in ambiguity, as multiple pathways may exist. Obviously, some of those things could actually be clarified in rule. However, that is a concern that's being raised. And so there's kind of a perceived negative impact on existing retailers that was also expressed to us. So as we're looking at this particular issue, we also looked at some of the cities that we shared information with, and we understand where reduced buffer zones have already occurred in Seattle, Pacific, Covington, Kirkland, Cle Elum, Redmond, Shelton, Sprague, and some areas of Skamania. And so those areas, some of them are more specific to a license type. However, there are opportunities to reduce that buffer zone already with regard to restricted entities that are not schools. And so when we're looking at some of these particular issues, we were trying to keep that in mind on limiting those impacts. So one of the things that we did look at was licensing has done a considerable amount of work reaching out to local cities and governments on how do we get more businesses licensed in areas, how do we open this up? And there's this kind of a sense with the feedback that we're getting here that some of the efforts that we've been trying to make with the local jurisdictions may not necessarily align with trying to force an issue on creating a different way of measurement. And so we don't want to obviously negatively impact some of the dynamics and relationships that we've built with the cities along these lines if they feel like we're not now listening to them, but we are doing other rules in effect in a more direct manner. So when we're looking at the issues and weighing the feedback that we received, we're considering introducing a withdrawal to that CR 101. We currently have 12 rural projects open. We have 2 slated to be opened. We also have 8 internal suggestions for cleanup and clarification in rules. And so there's a lot of work being done. And without this being very supported, we believe our efforts, time and efforts may be spent in other areas. We wanted to put this out in a public way, predominantly so people can hear some of the comments that have been suggested. If anybody wants to write in prior to us bringing something to the board, we wanted both of you, member Garrett and Holmes, to understand what some of the feedback that we've been receiving. So if you have any questions that we can answer moving forward, or any other concerns that you may have on whether to continue on with the rulemaking effort or consider the alternative, we definitely want to put this out in the open for you all to be considering. Obviously, there's no decision that needs to be made today, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and also kind of letting folks know in a public manner that we are considering withdrawing this particular rule project. So with that, I'll conclude there and see if you both have any questions.
So Pete, and in my one-on-one with Justin, one of the concerns I had was, is the public aware of this and know that we need to hear comments, whether it's for it or against it, and to bring it up at a board caucus so we can see, because when I looked at what he was saying, the feedback, I think it was only 2 comments that was from the public, if that's correct, Justin?
We had 2 supportive comments.
Supportive is what I'm referring, right?
From folks who are affiliated with cannabis retailers.
Right. So I kind of wanted, and then when I listened to some of the comments, like you just mentioned, Justin, some of it was misconception of what it means and things, that there was some clarity put out there for the people that was opposing it to kind of correct some of what they were thinking. And even on the comment that you just mentioned of us trying to get new counties and to open up and things, I would say to that, are they even aware of this to where it would be an issue? Because they're not aware, I mean, of how we do the measurements. Are they that in the weed to where this would be a hinder to them making that decision? Is all I'm just putting a comment out there on.
Sure. And from a just an outside look, I would say that those cities and counties that haven't been in communication with us about lifting bans and moratorias are probably not paying attention
Right.
to some of these types of rules, because they still have a ban and moratoria. So they
Exactly.
may not see some of the impacts that are associated with this type of change.
Right. Yeah. But that's all I have. I didn't have any questions.
And I just had a few. First, Justin, thanks so much for the update. I have read every comment. Just put in another plug that written public comments really do give us time to study and think about. And I think whether we adopt the rule or not, or withdraw it, I think the discussion is precisely what we needed. I think that in particular, as we reach out to the communities that have outright bans on cannabis facilities, the notion that they can tailor make their local zoning in accordance with local values is a big selling point. So I don't fault this effort at all. I think it's been a real opportunity to shed some light on it and have some great conversation. And as you pointed out, Justin, and you agree, I believe, Ali, that there were some misperceptions too. You know, this is certainly not unprecedented. One of the comments that I saw, in fact, I understand that the proposal would align it more closely with how we measure the buffer zones for alcohol facilities. So, you know, this is not revolutionary. And moreover, I think it was initially prompted by concern for opening up more locations for social equity applicants in particular. So I think our work is to try and convince, you know, the communities that have so far banned cannabis facilities to recognize that they're missing out on some revenue and some opportunity to show what regulation will do to help their local public safety concerns. And then that will also make sure that we have more opportunities for social equity applicants. So I'm open to next steps on this, but I'm grateful that you thought of this to examine. So that's my 3 cents on this.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And to one of your comments, that I should highlight on the differences between alcohol and cannabis. So we did receive some comments where people were commenting around, this isn't precedented. This is actually common path of travel is used in other areas. We use it for liquor, and we have for many decades. And so this is certainly not unprecedented. However, there is a difference between the two. And so for the 500 feet for alcohol, which this would not change 1,000 feet. This is still 1,000 feet, but the common path of travel for alcohol only needs to consider 2 different entities, churches and schools. Schools have a veto right. Churches, we have to provide consideration of that input. With cannabis, there's several more different types of locations, including arcades, daycares, etc. And so it is an added layer of complexity when you're trying to do some measurements for multiple entities on a common path of travel versus having something on a map where you can use GIS coordinates to be able to assess in a more productive manner. So I did want to make that point of clarification, but to your point, yeah, this is something we've done common path of travel for many, many years on alcohol and haven't had hardly any issues pop up with that.
Thank you. Did you have something else, Pete?
Yeah, follow-up question. One of the comments prompted me to look into the statute to see if there's any definition for the word perimeter. I didn't see one, Justin. Have we analyzed that? It does seem to present a legal issue about whether common path of travel would violate the perimeter language in the RCW.
Yeah, and based on the RCW, we would still have to utilize the perimeter language. So we have established maps based on perimeters of those types of locations. So we already have something in place. But yes, what we do is we take the parcel as a whole, so the tax parcel for that particular business, and whatever that parcel entails, the perimeter is the exterior of that parcel. And so that's how we've applied this over time with cannabis. And so we do have some things in place to be able to manage the parcel or manage the perimeter issue. With a rule change and not a legislative change, we would not be moving away from the perimeter language because that is set in statute.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All righty. That takes us to board member and executive assistant report. Gretchen, Deb, in the room. Did you all have anything?
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay. Pete, did you have anything else?
Real quick call out. I had 2 very enjoyable ride-alongs in the past week. I want to thank Officer Doug Geltz for a cannabis ride-along, and then Lieutenant Robert Reeder drove me around on a late night Friday shift for alcohol.
Oh, wow.
Right.
How was that?
And it was in Seattle right after the Mariners had beaten Houston. So it was a pretty fun ride and relatively calm. We also met Officer Michael DeLuz out on the ride along. So I got a pretty good cross sampling, and I'm looking forward to having further. I did want to say I was also party to an interesting conversation among our officers that, number one, demonstrated how committed they are to protecting youth from alcohol access. And that's the problem of minors in possession. And what other avenues might we have to help further deter minors that are getting access to alcohol? And moreover, if there are any institutions that are, directly or indirectly helping them to understand how to game the system. So I thought that it was a wonderful conversation to hear it right on the front lines. I look forward to bringing this up and talking about it further with the rest of the board.
All righty. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
With that, board caucus is now adjourned. See you all next meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.